Ray, Shelly, thank you for joining me for this conversation. Excited to have you here. What do you think the state of the country is if you give it a letter grade?
Somewhere within the C and the C minus range.
How about you?
I was going to say C minus as well.
I mean, and I don't know, I can make an argument for lower.
What are the key three things that make you think that?
I would probably say inflation, social divide, and then gun control. The way we're going about promoting like an inclusive kind of environment is backfiring, and it's causing more divide.
I would say that because of our polarization that exists, that focusing on inclusion is making us more different and less inclusive. But I still think our ultimate goal should be aiming towards being more inclusive.
Do you think it's being pushed too hard by the left or Democratic Party, and they bear some responsibility for that backlash, or do you think it's just the
I don't think
right?
It's being pushed hard enough, probably.
So you think, okay, it could be pushed even further. There will be a necessary backlash, but we'll get through it.
Yeah.
And what about you?
For somebody who is accepting, like I'm there already. I don't know if this message is for me, right? And you can't isolate who receives what message. I'm mindful of that, but I think for me, where I'm, where I feel I stand, I kind of feel like, okay, like it's cool, point taken.
So let me just take a fairly divisive example, because that's what this is all about. If your business said, hey, you have to put your pronouns under your signature line.
I guess I understand why it's necessary for a lot of people. If my employer asked me to do that, I suppose I would comply. I don't know if I truly understand what all of that is kind of promoting. I guess it's self-identity, and that's fine. But what if I want to keep that to myself? And I'm not saying me, but what if there's somebody of that mindset?
So if you want to do it, you should be able to do it. If you don't want to, don't tell me what to put in my signature line.
I guess essentially, yeah.
What about you?
I think I would agree. I mean, I see the importance of putting in there how you identify, but it can go both ways. Like if you make it mandatory, then somebody who might not be ready to say that they are a they them, like even though that might be true for them, being forced to put something, they might decide to put him, her, or he, him, and that will feel like a lie. It would be really nice for us to move towards that, to be able to say up front, like, I identify as she, her, but I think that anything mandatory in that regard seems like it could backfire in the other direction.
What about, say, this Florida law, which some people have called the Don't Say Gay law? Mm-hmm. Do you have a just 5-second opinion, yay or nay, on that? And how strongly do you feel about it?
I'm opposed to it, and I probably am at a 8.
How about you?
Yeah, that one is hard for me to relate to because I don't have kids. And so I've asked people that do have kids, and I asked them, where do you stand on that? And from what I've gathered, it's that one kind of falls in that's the parents' kind of role to however you want to call it, right? Either introduce the child to or to educate them on. And I think as I've kind of digested it, I kind of agree with that.
So you would be sort of thumbs up on the law or something?
I was kind of afraid this topic would come up because I just don't want to come off a certain way, right? And where it's like I'm insensitive to, I guess, that demographic, right? I've come to the conclusion that school should definitely be a safe haven. People from all walks of life should be able to be who they are while there. Is it something that the teacher should spearhead at that age? I don't know. I think that's part of the big question.
Maybe I'll make it easier by saying there's two separate issues, arguably, that the law touches on, right? So one is, should teachers be able to instruct kids, kindergarten through third grade, on sexual orientation, transgenderism. And what would you say about that?
I believe that they should.
Okay. And just on that narrow topic, the law may do other things, but on that one,
I think it's too soon.
if the law is not written super clearly and cleanly on instruction from a teacher, then what happens if a kid says, oh, well, my two dads or my two moms, whatever, and then another kid says, oh, he said he had two dads. Is the teacher like, is there a gag rule for the teacher being able to say, oh, he has his two parents are both dads, for example? Like, what would you say about that one?
I mean, I think that becomes a kind of like a learning opportunity for the child who's asking. And it probably does fall on the teacher at that point.
In that case, the teacher should be able to answer a kid in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, unless I guess so, right? Because unless you tell them, well, go home and ask your parents about that. That's kind of as a teacher, you'd probably be in a little bit of a pickle there. But
and from a public policy standpoint, from the law standpoint, you would want the law to allow, it sounds like I don't want to put words in your mouth. You'd want the law to allow a teacher to not feel like they're going to get fired or something if they answer that question in some way, shape, or form.
Well, no, because in this case, it's true.
Right.
Right. So it's like, well.
Right.
But I think that what the law is saying is that even if that teacher affirms to the kid, like, yes, so-and-so has two dads, and another child overhears that and goes home and tells their parents, then that teacher, just by affirming it, will get fired.
Well,
I think.
I don't want to get into exactly how the law is written, because then we'd need to have we could put it on screen or whatever. But I think you can divide the two issues.
Yeah.
You would say instruction's okay, and certainly answering a question is okay. And you would say instruction in these issues is too soon for, up to third grade. But of course, if somebody asks a question that needs to be answered, if a kid asks a question that it's true, it's factual, it should be answered.
Yeah. I mean, it clearly sparked their interest. You got to.
Right.
Yeah, you kind of have to, I would say.
What about transgender bathroom usage? How do we deal with that issue? And how do you determine? Do you just get to decide on the day, or do you have to have like a certificate, or like how do we, how do we deal with that? Let's say it's in high school, so it's we're also dealing with the less mature people.
Man, do you want to go first? I don't know where that's a tough one. I have trouble with this one because I always get confused with what trans kind of means, and there's always like that. I need to know more. And
well, male equipment identifying as a woman, or female equipment identifying as a male, is it your equipment, for lack of a better expression, that determines what bathroom you can go to in a high school?
Sure.
Or is it this is who I identify as?
Man. I don't know where I stand, because I don't want to contest, what people think they are, or how they identify. But I know that there are cases, and very small cases, where there's an adverse outcome to allowing that. Where somebody who is a trans woman, so essentially somebody who IDs as women with male parts goes into an all-girl restroom and then exposes themselves. And so that's kind of the unforeseen consequence of it, right? And it doesn't speak to everybody that identifies as trans. And so it's hard, because if what we're talking about is acceptance and inclusion, then I'm okay with it, right? But if it goes back to harm, right? If there's harm being caused by certain people, not everybody within that demographic, but some, then that's where it becomes kind of a tough question for me to answer. And I get that I'd be solving for a small percentage of people, right, and that makes it unfair to the rest. So I know that doesn't really answer the question, but I guess that's kind of the school of thought.
So
Yeah.
Or you may not think it's hard. What's your opinion on it?
You should use the bathroom to which you identify. So if you are
Can you choose that at the beginning of the school year, or you choose that on the day, or?
I think you choose it when you finally are willing to come out to your family and your peers as I am transgender. Then at that point, you are then going through the process of transitioning and therefore have every right to identify fully as the gender, or, what I'm trying to say. You have the right to use the facilities as you identify.
And so in the school context, you would say, I was born a male, but I'm now a female. You would say that on day one, and then the school would say, okay, now you can use the ladies' room.
Mm-hmm.
What about for locker rooms? So what about a sports team showering together?
I think that if there was a transgender man in a shared space, they probably would still be very modest simply because they are aware of the fact that their sexual organs are different than everything around them.
I definitely don't want to get into,
Yeah, I mean,
like at the micro level, people are going to behave one way or another. We're just talking about policy.
Yeah.
So at a policy level, if you're the school principal and you have a, like the trans swimmer and male equipment in the female on the female team, and there aren't stalls. There certainly weren't stalls in my high school. I don't know about yours, but
As she was answering, I'm like, you guys showered? Because we didn't.
Awesome.
No, I don't have an issue with somebody that identifies as woman but still has their male biological parts. I don't have a problem with them being in a female locker room.
And
vice versa.
And showering publicly with the other people.
Yeah.
And what about you?
I don't think it's going to happen, but
Well, just it's.
I guess
these are
the
all
hypothetical.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would share the same stance as I did on the other, element to that. So I'm kind of, I see it the same way as I did on the other topic.
Which would in this case be, well, we're gonna have to make some other arrangements here because that could be traumatizing to a 14-year-old girl or something who's in.
Right.
Right. I do want to ask one other thing. Do you think it's okay for parents to, if their kid is expressing a desire to transform, to hormone blockers and things like that, to have somebody born a male go through puberty with testosterone blockers? Or do you think that's something that legally shouldn't be allowed until the person is an adult, whatever that is, 18 or something like that?
It's hard because if the child's driving that dialogue, then, part of me wants to say, well, who is, including their parents, I guess, to say that, no, you're not. But are they at a mature enough age to make that decision? And that's kind of like the...
So you struggle with that?
Yeah, a little bit because, what if, I don't know, it could be, it just seems like you probably, that's a very mature decision to make. And is it one that,
that young?
Yeah, I don't know.
What about you?
I think it should. If a child identifies as transgender and is very clear about it and in conversation, I think it's absolutely fine to start the transition process early. In fact, I could even argue that it might be cruel to make them wait until adulthood.
I don't know where I stand on it, to be honest. It's too polarizing of a topic for me.
Does the age of the fetus matter to to you in terms of thinking whether abortion is okay or not?
Don't know.
Don't know.
Yeah.
What about you?
Mm-mm.
Doesn't matter.
Mm-mm.
What about 8 months?
Come on, no woman is.
No, I'm not trying to put. I'm just.
No, I know, but it's a silly. I mean, it's a silly question. If there is no such thing as abortion at 8 months, at that point it's birth. The child is viable.
Where's the line then for you?
I don't agree with the concept of the question. Sorry, I'm being complicated about it, but I don't think I think that it's a deeply misogynistic viewpoint that a woman is going to care for a child to a certain extent and then all of a sudden be like, you know what, I've changed my mind, abort it. I think that unless I really and truly do not think that that situation will happen unless the woman's safety, health and safety is at risk. That, I don't agree with the basis of the question.
Well,
Because,
but
I mean,
still
if
people- states are going to pass laws.
Right.
They're
I
gonna
mean,
pass
I
laws
think-
based on something. So I'm just asking in that regard.
The
would say-
limit doesn't exist for me. And I mean that from the standpoint that, like, there's a certain point where the fetus can survive outside of the womb, and at that point it's not considered an abortion. And anything before that,
So
it is not a
the Roe v.
life.
Wade line is what works for you.
Yeah.
If the fetus can can survive outside the womb, then it's a child, and then you can't abort unless it's the a woman's health is at stake.
Correct.
And what happens when medical science pushes that line back further and further so that you could survive outside the womb at 6 weeks?
If the child can survive outside of the womb as an entity, then it's birth. It is not an abortion.
Ah, so if medical science pushes it really far, then it would be okay for states to outlaw it.
Well, at that point, again, I keep saying that's the difference on the terminology. If the entity can exist outside of the womb, that is birth.
Right.
That's not abortion.
And then it would be illegal. It would be okay for a state to make it illegal, in your view.
Well, it would be. I mean, I guess
The line is 26 weeks now, and it's 6 weeks in 50 years. Then 6 weeks is birth, and so abortion is legal up to 6 weeks. In your view, that's okay. And after 6 weeks, it's illegal.
I mean, as long as there's. I mean, because what you're saying is that if the fetus can exist outside of the womb, then I mean, if depending on what's going to happen to the child, like that's then murder.
Okay. I'm not trying to push you one way or another.
So it's like, I mean, so it's a really tricky thing. Like, is there?
So for you,
plans,
for you, the line is just when the fetus is viable. Period. Wherever that is medically.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.